Well, thank you for that introduction, Sandra. We want to talk a little bit about this campaign, and I am not Sarah Cross, who was supposed to be here, but she got sick and was not able to make it. And at the ACA gathering last week, Andrea Bucklew asked me if I could come up with something for today, and I thought, and I came up with a topic, and then over the weekend I thought, that's going to be boring. Better not do that. Came up with another topic which wouldn't have been boring, but it would have taken me a lot longer to put together. And I suggested this because I've done this twice at WVU and did it once at University of Charleston. And so it's an opportunity to me to talk about this particular campaign that my daughter Laura and I did back in 2018. The West Virginia Remembers campaign. It won the 2019 Best of Show for the Public Relations Society of America East Central District, which serves West Virginia, Kentucky, Indiana, Michigan, Ohio, and Western Pennsylvania. It was also the 2018 Best in West Virginia winner and won 8 Diamond Awards from the East Central District, which is first place awards, 4 second place merit awards from the same organization, 11 Crystal Awards from the PRSA West Virginia, and 1 honorable mention, which is a second place award. It was our honor to do this, and this is a picture of Laura and myself as we are showing the Best in West Virginia Award to Tom Sofer, who is the president of Temple Bethel, who is our client, and Joe Golden, the treasurer of that same synagogue. That picture was used in the Beckley newspaper, the Register Herald, as well as in Marshall's alumni paper or magazine. They gave us a 2-page spread on this, which was very nice. Why us? Why did we do this? Well, I heard a gentleman by the name of Paul Faringa speak in October of 2019 at Fairmont State, and he says, telling your story trumps your brand, your logo, and your tagline. Nothing is more important than your compelling story. And that is what brought us to this particular moment to do this campaign. And it's based on this man, Max Lewin. He was known as Meyer Lewin before coming to the United States in 1946. And he has a very interesting story. He was one of the 4 Holocaust survivors that settled in West Virginia. There was a lady that lived in Morgantown, a gentleman who worked for Concord College or Concord University down in Athens. There was Max in Beckley, and there was a gentleman out in Martinsburg who actually was recruited by the OSS, the precursor to the CIA, to infiltrate the German army. Never had a chance to meet him, but his story was fascinating. But Max had a story all his own. I'll tell you a little bit about Max. Max was born on September 20th, 1918. And the town that he was born in changed hands over the years. When he was born, it was under German occupation during World War I, then gained its independence after World War I as part of Lithuania. And then it was taken over by Russia and became a Russian area. And then a war with Poland broke out, and it became part of Poland. And that's where he called himself from being from Poland. One day before his 23rd birthday in 1941, he and his family were captured by the Nazis, as well as every other Jew in their little town in Poland. And as we study his story, and we do have the dates because he did write his memoirs, and I'll talk to you a little bit about that later. But in March 10th of 1943, they were in a little town, Biola Biata, which is now in Belarus. And his family was separated. His father, Yechiel, his mother, Sarah, his sister, who was younger than him, was a little girl at the time, Chaya, and his wife, Fruma, were separated out from the 3 remaining family members there at Biola Biata, and they were taken away and shot, never to see them again. And the 3 that were left, Leah, Joseph, and Max, went into Russia, where they were in a camp there run by the Germans, where they were working. They were brought back to Poland on September 1st, 1943. And at that time, Leah was separated from Max and Joseph and taken away and was killed at the Treblinka concentration camp. She was gassed with many others, and then her body was cremated. 2 days later, Max and Josef were lined up, and a German soldier came through and started picking out people, and he picked out his younger brother Josef, who was about 16 at the time, pulled him out of the line along with others, and Max never saw him again. He tried finding him after the war. He spent a great deal of money looking all over Europe for Josef, looked over Israel, never could find him, and just assumed that he was left for dead. Max, however, was imprisoned at a number of concentration camps. Auschwitz, Natzweiler Struhof, Neckelrez, and Dachau was the last one he was in 1945. He was an engineer by trade, and they needed him to work on equipment. And so he worked on planes while he was in the concentration camps. In April of 1945, the Americans liberated Dachau, and he was set free. And on the 20th of May, 1946, he arrives in New York City, not knowing a word of English, made his way to Pittsburgh, where he had some distant relatives, and his brother, Harry, had left Poland, or whatever it was at that time, I think it was Imperial Russia, and made his way to Beckley in the 1920s, and he went to live with him, where he learned English. He went to the local college there to learn English. Max was really quiet about his Holocaust story, and he had lived there from 1946 to his death in 2002, and in fall of 1990, at a religious ceremony they had on the Sabbath, he broke down and told his Holocaust story to the members of his synagogue. And they knew he had been in the Holocaust, but they didn't know how horrible his family had been treated. In December of that same year, he went to the local newspaper, the Register Herald, talked to Charles Connors, who was the publisher at that time, who was also the president of the Beckley Area Foundation, and offered up a check in memory of his family for the foundation and another gift to Woodrow Wilson High School to remember his family who perished in the Holocaust. Charlie Connor wrote about that, and it was published on the 31st of December of 1990. And by April, he decided that the local synagogue, Temple Bethel, needed to have a Holocaust Remembrance Day. And so they did it over a weekend, an entire weekend, where they read the names. Members of the synagogue read the names of people who had perished, and it took 3 days to do that. They couldn't do any more. They had so many names and so few volunteers for that first Holocaust Remembrance Day. But they continued it year after year there at Temple Bethel. Which leads me to a friend of mine by the name of Mel Hancock, who was known as Mr. Beckley. He was the director of development at Mountain State University, where I was working. And Mel was friendly with everybody in town. Mel passed away, I think, in 2015. He was just a genius at coming up with ideas. And he came to Max, and he had this idea of a bell tower for our campus. We needed an elevator, and a bell tower would have been a perfect place to house an elevator. It had a carillon that was going to go into it. And so Max gave over $1 million to this campaign. It took some convincing. He was curious about how his family was going to be remembered. And there is a plaque that still stands there today on WVU Tech's campus. That bell tower is still there. And it was dedicated on the 20th of October, 1996. After that happened, he made an overture to the university and said, can we please have the Holocaust Remembrance Day here? Because we had 2 auditoriums that were fairly large. And the university said, sure. He was a donor. He was a friend of the university. And they had a policy there that if anybody wanted to come in and use our facilities that was, for community use, they could do that for nothing. Absolutely free. Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, any civic organization, churches, synagogues. And the first Holocaust Remembrance Day at the university was May 4th, 1997. On the 24th of August in 2002, Max passes away. But the Holocaust Remembrance Day continues. in that facility. And if you want an interesting story, check out the Chicago Tribune or the Washington Post from 2002, because his estate was questioned by everybody. And people came out of the woodwork because he had so much money. No one knew how much money this guy had. He had stored it away. He was afraid there was going to be another Holocaust. He had a nice house that he inherited from his brother. He paid men to go in there and cut the grass around the house, to put flowers in the window, to dust things, but he never lived there. He lived above his store, which was his brother's store, Harry's Men's Shop, because he had a back way out. He was afraid that someone would come and try to take him in. He was very fearful because of what happened to him. A significant thing here is in December of 2002, Mountain State University closes. But those who succeeded in the campus, University of Charleston, from January 1st, 2013 to 2016, continued to have the Holocaust Remembrance Day, and so did WVU Tech since then. This is the client. It's a small concrete block building that's covered with stucco. It's pretty close to downtown. The synagogue has been in existence as a group since the 1920s, and this building was built about 1933. 40 people are members of Temple Bethel, and as they've said over the years, we have more funerals than we have bar mitzvahs, because it is a dying congregation, and they realize that, and they don't even have regular services. They have special services throughout the year. They don't have a regular rabbi at this point in time. How did we get involved? We're going to go back to June 14th and 15th, 2017, and this was the night, the 14th, the night of the Crystal Awards ceremony that the Public Relations Society of America West Virginia had, and I heard so many great campaigns that people had done. We won some awards here from AB, and was thinking, I said, you know, I haven't done a campaign since 2001 and 2002, so it might be a good thing to get involved in a campaign. And I couldn't sleep that night, and that was when I was a 10-month employee, like my fellow deans here. And it was June. I got up in the middle of the night, and I started thinking, what kind of campaign could we do? So I thought, and I remember that in 1996, I was doing a TV program on Channel 6 out of Bluefield, and it ran every Sunday morning. It was for the college, and I would have guests on it. So in 1996, I called up Max, and I said, Max, would you be on my television show? And so I interviewed him, tape recorded him. He calls me the next day on that Thursday, and he says, and that was the day I normally put the show together, and we drive it to Bluefield on Friday for the Sunday airing. And he called me in tears saying, I was so emotional. I don't want people to see me that way. Please do not air this show until I am gone. And I said, I will honor that. And I didn't. And it sat on my shelf until 2018, where we could use it in this campaign as a way to bring people to this Holocaust Remembrance Day. People get to hear Max's story in his own words, his own voice. And one of the things that I did, I was very, very upfront about this. Well, I'll talk about that in a moment. Let's talk about creating the brand. I was that night awake and thinking, what could we call this? What could we call this? Remembering the Holocaust. And I came up with a couple different versions that had West Virginia and Remembers in it. And I looked online, and no one had a website, WV Remembers. There were no social media sites by that name. And so I went ahead and registered the domain names that evening. Whether we were going to do it or not, I just wanted to secure them before somebody else tried to use them. Now, somebody else is trying to use the name for remembering veterans of the Vietnam War. And so that's where the brand came about. I sought permission from the synagogue very shortly after that. They didn't know me. The president's brother I knew because he did some electrical work at Mountain State. but I didn't know Tom Sofer. Now I went down to his store, Best Fabric and Foam, and talked to him about it. And I says, this will be very self-serving. I want you to know this up front. And we were honest about this from the very beginning. We are doing this because I want to do something. My daughter was going to be a junior that year that would kind of boost her portfolio a little bit and give me something to say in my 60s to do something and have a go at another campaign. Very, very upfront about it, and they were honest that they liked that idea. And I said, if we win any awards, I will get you copies of the awards. And they gave us permission. So I started doing some secondary and primary research at this time. Mostly secondary. We'll get to the primary research later. Secondary research was going back into the news archives, finding out what had been written in the local newspaper concerning the previous Holocaust Remembrance Days. And that's what took me to the next step, building trust with the people in the synagogue. And again, they didn't know us. We're not Jewish. They were a little skeptical. But after we showed them some things that we were planning to do, showed them the video, they were on board 100%. So we had to formulate the campaign. The purpose was to create a campaign that would educate West Virginians about the Holocaust. Our goals? Rekindle interest in the Beckley Annual Holocaust Remembrance Day. And the reason why, they had dropped in attendance. Increase the promotional footprint of the campaign. Typically, all advertising was done in Beckley. We were going to look at other markets to advertising. Our objectives? Promote the event in 4 West Virginia markets between February and April 2018. Double the April 15th, 2018 event from the average of 30 in recent years. That was our goal. We wanted 60 people to come. The last 5 years, because both the University of Charleston and WVU Tech did no advertising to support this particular event. Mountain State used to do that. They used to have someone come up and do a story from the local newspaper. But they really didn't have a vested interest. They were from elsewhere. WVU Tech coming from Montgomery, University of Charleston, obviously from Charleston. It really wasn't their thing, but they kept it going. Our target audience was West Virginians of all ages, undifferentiated, geographically centered in our state. And we brought out people that were of all ages from all parts of West Virginia. Now, to formulate the campaign, and this wasn't our idea to do it this quickly, but it just, and we'll talk a little bit about why there was a delay. We started February 13th to April 15th, which was the day of the campaign. So 60 days to do everything we needed to do. Our strategies: promote Max Lewin's horrific story of the Holocaust. We had a 20-minute interview from October of 1996 that was going to be shown for the first time. When they installed lights in the bell tower in 1997, we had a video of that I took. And we used some of that in the Holocaust Remembrance Day. Create a tasteful and easy to remember brand for that event. West Virginia remembers. West Virginia remembers the Holocaust. West Virginia remembers Max Lewin. And so there was our brand. In public relations, there's a 4-step process, RPI. Research, planning, instituting the plan, and evaluating the plan. During the fall of 2017, I was involved in a class from Southern New Hampshire University and working on a graduate certificate at that time. Marketing 666 Social Media Campaigns was the class I was taking. And the number was true to the core of that class. It was a devil of a class. I will tell you this. It's a 10-week class. In the first 4 weeks, we had 4 different faculty members. We had our first faculty member who was technically there, but not, for 2 weeks. And then in the 3rd week, we had a faculty member that was there for 2 days. And then we had a faculty member there with us for 5 days. And by the fourth week, we got our fourth faculty member who's brilliant. It teaches for William and Mary University in Virginia. He's done an excellent job in the class. And I kind of used this as a way to plan out our strategies because we had to plan out a social media campaign. We had some research delays. Our plan originally was to survey people in the Beckley area, and we were looking at Crossroads Mall, which is the largest mall in the city. And in November, when we had the Thanksgiving break, I went to the mall. I tried calling, making an appointment with the mall manager. I never got a call back. So I went to the mall, talked to one of the shop owners who I knew, and he told me the name of the person to ask for. Went down there. She was out for a few days and never heard anything back. And I called her on Friday after Thanksgiving and asked her if we could do this. And she said, well, I have to get corporate's permission to do this. So I waited, and I waited, and I waited, and I'm still waiting. I went back in December after we started Christmas break to ask them if we could do that. She said, corporate said you can't do that. We had permission to do it outside of Walmart, but this is December. And I wasn't going to stop people on the sidewalk there while they're trying to get warm inside to ask them the question what they knew about the Beckley Holocaust Remembrance Day, if they knew anything, or where it was held, how long it was on. We just wanted some basic information. So I started interviewing people from the town, and 4 members of the synagogue, as well as 5 community leaders that were familiar with the Holocaust Remembrance Day that had been in existence since 1991. We wanted to start right after the Christmas holiday, but the president of the synagogue's father passes away. And of course there was a mourning period. And we really couldn't do anything until February. And that was our delay. We were really worried because it was going to put us late, only 60 days to do a promotion, and that is never good. You need to have a little more lead time. So we're going to put things out in stages. So we developed the logo, which you see on all the slides, and that was something that I came up with a mock-up in that social media class, and I turned it over to my daughter Laura, who is a graphic artist. She's now an art director for a company that just moved from Chicago to Nashville. And her boss a couple weeks ago said, would you like to be a partner? She started out as a part-timer there, got a full-time job as a graphic designer, became art director, maybe a partner. We'll see. So she developed the logo based on what I had come up with and did a better job than I could ever do. And everybody that has seen it said, man, that's really nice. The congregation loved it, and that's really what counted. And so in formulating a campaign, you need to have tactics. And we had 9 tactics that we were going to go through. And that first tactic is display a brand-specific logo on all printed and visual material. So we had it on our website, our blog, on our videos, social media, on a poster, on a press release, newspaper ad, and in media coverage. There it is. She designed it monochromatically in blue. And I said, use blue, use yellow, those are West Virginia colors. And we felt, well, maybe not yellow, because that yellow Star of David was worn by Holocaust people that were in the Holocaust. And that probably wouldn't be a good idea. So we went with blue, and she used 4 colors of blue, and of course white was the background. And she actually used the font that I used in my mock-up, and that's Trajan. And she said, what's that font? I said, it's Trajan. It's a historical font. To capture an image that deals with the Holocaust, I found a public domain picture on the Library of Congress's website. And it's free to anybody to use. It's men that were delivered out of a camp in Romania and concentrated on these 2 men right here. This man shows defiance. And that's defying the Nazis. This man is shattered. He has gone through trials. And so you get both emotions in this photo. I added the barbed wire because they had been freed at this time, and somebody had taken their photo in the Army, and that had gone to the federal government and put it in the Library of Congress. But I wanted to concentrate on those two men. We did. What did I do here? So here's how we used it on the website, the blog, and Eventbrite. On Facebook, notice I have the one man in the crook of the W there. YouTube, you don't get much of a cover in YouTube, but you see their eyes, and they're telling a story. On Twitter. Google Plus, if you remember that, it was still alive in the spring of 2018. And that was what we did with a logo and an image to get the message across. Our second tactic was to publish a website to generate interest in the Beckley Holocaust Remembrance Day. And so we did that. We used 3 domain names: wvremembers.com, wvremembers.org, wvremembers.net. We didn't want anybody grabbing one of the big domain extensions that would compete with our project. And so we bought them all up. And it would have information about the event. We had Mac's memoirs translated from Yiddish, which I did. It was not an easy job. I found his memoirs on a site in New York City. One of the libraries in New York had these books that came from Israel that were written in Hebrew and Yiddish. His memoirs were in there. His brother was he had a brother that left before the Holocaust. He lived in Israel. He was the editor of the book. And Max wrote his memoirs of what happened, giving us dates and information. And so I used Google Translate, but I did study Hebrew, and I had studied German, and Yiddish is a Germanic language that uses a Hebrew alphabet. So I can work out some of the sequences and the syntax in the translation and put that up. We actually gave copies of this to everybody that came out to the Holocaust Remembrance Day on April 15th. We had links to our blog and videos, also social media. We had a press release, photos that could be used, and a video for media use where they could use the audio if they were radio, use the video if they're television, and an interview, video, and transcript would come later. After we showed it for the first time on April 15th, about April 17th, we put up his complete video and a transcript of it. We had 483 unique visitors and 790 page views, so came back to the site. And remember, we're only working at 60 days. We're 2 people trying to do this. It's very daunting, but we did it. West Virginia Metro News decided to use the information from the website to construct a story. Now, Metro News in 2018, and it may still be, was the most often viewed news website in West Virginia, with 100,000 people viewing it every day. And so it went there, and then it ran on 57 affiliates that were in West Virginia and in surrounding states. Tactic 3, conduct a statewide media relations promotion. That included an hour-long video of a former employer of mine, WWNR in Beckley. I went in and was interviewed on their morning show on March 30th. We had a 5-minute feature radio story. I played that story on that particular show, and West Virginia Public Radio broadcasted on their 18 stations and translators around West Virginia twice on April 13th. I heard it both times. It was at 7:45 in the morning when it ran the first time. It was right before 6 o'clock the second time. We had a 3-column-inch newspaper ad that ran in the Register Herald for 3 days prior to the event. And we were fortunate enough that a local businessman, because we weren't going to do any newspaper advertising, said to us, "I will pay for the ad if you construct a 3-column ad. I'll pay for it to run 3 days." And so Laura designed the ad. Channel 4 in Oak Hill, WOAY-TV, ran 2 news stories the week of the event. We got a lot of newspaper and broadcast coverage of what was going to happen. We ran PSAs on 25 stations throughout West Virginia and some in Virginia because I had an opportunity to know some folks because I'm a former broadcaster. Southern Communications ran about 800 PSAs. We had a company that was in Greenbrier County that had stations in that area as well as in parts of Fayette County and in Nicholas County. And West Virginia Media, Radio Corporation rather, the guy that ran the Charleston operation, Fred Persinger, was a competitor of mine when I was in radio. We both did morning shows. I did a show on a couple different stations, and he was at WTNJ. We knew each other. I called Fred up, would you air these? And he says, absolutely, send me MP3 files, and I did. We imagine that we had between 1,000 and 1,200 impressions from the PSAs. West Virginia Radio Company did not give us a number, but everybody else did, and that put us close to 1,000 there. We had statewide coverage by Metro News, and all 3 TV stations in the Beckley market did a story on the Holocaust Remembrance Day after the event. And so we got a lot of coverage. And this is where if we look at a map of West Virginia, and you see all the dots and squares and triangles, our original target markets there are, I can't use this here, but Beckley, Bluefield, Princeton, Lewisburg, and Charleston were our primary target audiences. That's where we ran the PSAs. If you see the triangle that's in black, that's where the PSAs ran. Some of them ran down into Tazewell County, Virginia. The blue is the West Virginia Public Radio transmitters and translators. They're all around us. There's a transmitter and a translator in Wheeling. Counted them both. The Metro News affiliates are the green squares. They're all around the state. And we do have some that are in Boyd County, Kentucky, and Meigs County, Ohio. And so, and Tazewell County, Virginia, too. So we got outside of the state just by having some friends in those areas. This is the story that ran on West Virginia Public Radio. And I let my daughter Laura be the voice on this because she had a lot of talents, and I thought this would be a good thing for her to have something else in her portfolio. So we'll listen to this now.
And we'll take a moment to remember those killed during the Holocaust. Those stories and more coming up on West Virginia Morning from West Virginia Public Broadcasting, telling West Virginia's story. It's 7:41 on this West Virginia Morning. I'm Teresa Wills. This morning, we take a moment to remember the Holocaust.
And all the people, everybody from my hometown, my cousins and everything. I don't know how. I can never understand why. But it didn't take me.
This story's coming up on West Virginia Morning. First, this news. Sunday, April 15th, Temple Bethel and the Beckley community will gather at WVU Tech to remember those who were killed during the Holocaust. Alderson Broadus journalism student Laura Owston reports the annual event was inspired by the story of the late Max Lewin, who moved to Beckley after escaping the horrors of the Holocaust himself.
Yechol Lewin, Sarah Lewin, Joseph Lewin, Leah Lewin, Chaya Lewin.
Every spring since 1991, Temple Bethel and the Beckley community gather to remember the victims of the Holocaust with the annual Yom HaShoah, or Holocaust Remembrance Day. This particular gathering was inspired by the late Max Lewin, Beckley's only Holocaust survivor who came to southern West Virginia in 1946. Many residents were not aware of the tragedies Lewin faced until he revealed the extent of his suffering to his synagogue family. Temple Bethel members Ruth Ann Ornstein, Tom Sofer, and Dr. Joe Golden remember that day in 1990.
I'm not sure why he decided to share it. It kind of came out of the middle of nowhere in my way of thinking about it. And it's like something inside of him made it come out.
We were using student rabbis from Hebrew Union College at the time. And we had a Havdalah ceremony, and this was when the Sabbath ends and the new week begins.
At the time, we used to have gatherings in a person's home, a member of the congregation, and the ceremony involved a little bit of singing, a little bit of smelling the fragrances of spices.
After the things develops and it's over, the rabbis usually ask if we would share a story or like what we would be thankful for the week.
And so we basically described certain things, were mostly mundane. But when it came Max's turn, he started telling about his Holocaust experience. He just started opening up and telling his memories.
And we all just kind of take a step back and take a big, deep breath, and it got real quiet, and we listened.
Yeah, and I don't know why that was the time. But I guess it was God's way of saying it's time to let it out and deal with it. So that is what he did. And it was heart-wrenching.
And all of us were pretty much taken off our guard because we were expecting something mild, and here was something very deep, serious, life-changing for Max. And that he had previously kept quiet about this, but somehow in that particular setting, at that particular moment, he wanted to tell us his experience and his story.
We really didn't know what was going on in this little guy's head, but, you know, it was amazing, you know, that he could open up to us. And he began to get better. He began to heal after that.
And I think from that point on, Max was more open in talking to people about his experience being in concentration camps and losing many members of his family.
Beginning in late 1990, Max began to make plans to memorialize his parents, 2 sisters, a brother, and his wife, who all perished in the Holocaust. The first of these was an endowed scholarship for Woodrow Wilson High School students through the Beckley Area Foundation, and a tangible reminder with the Memorial Bell Tower at Mountain State University in 1994. Former MSU Executive Vice President Jim Solosky remembers that this memorial provided catharsis for Lewin.
Max would come and just sit on those benches and look at the plaque. And I think it gave him some comfort knowing what he had done and that he had left this everlasting memorial to his family.
The annual Holocaust Remembrance Day also allowed the community to honor and remember the dead. This year's commemoration will feature a 20-minute interview with Max Lewin that was recorded in 1996. This never-before-published video gives a personal glimpse of the horrors that Max encountered, including the fact that he was the only Holocaust survivor of his hometown, Lipnitsky, Poland.
And all the people, everybody from my hometown, my cousins and everything. I don't know how. I can never understand why. But it didn't take me. But I was the only one. All the people, I wasn't in all over Germany and after the war in Israel. Nobody, but I was the only one in that area left, in my town, in my area, people I knew. And that was the end of it.
Temple Bethel Secretary Dr. Joe Golden describes the powerful emotions that Max displayed in this video.
And in the interview, you could see Max's voice get broken at times, you get more emotional, and you need to empathize with that because he's remembering the horrors that he and his family experienced and what he saw around him.
The annual Beckley Holocaust Remembrance Day will be Sunday, April 15th at 1 p.m. in Carter Hall on the campus of West Virginia University Institute of Technology. Beckley Mayor Rob Rappold explains the importance of this gathering.
We need to always have that in our mind and to make sure that that sort of atrocity and inhumane activity never happens again in our lifetime or lifetimes to come.
In Beckley, I'm Laura Owston.
We've posted more information on the annual Beckley Holocaust Remembrance Day on April 15th. That's at wvpublic.org.
I'm going to move this along, was that I was driving home one weekend and in Summersville, and my younger daughter calls me up and she says, "Dad, did I hear you on the radio?" And I said, "Yes, and you heard your sister too." And she said, "I did?" She didn't recognize her sister, but she recognized my voice. This is the ad that ran in the paper for 3 days. Laura designed that, 3-column-inch ad. Our fourth tactic, conduct an integrated social media promotion. We had over 6,000 impressions on Facebook. Instagram, 132 followers. Eventbrite brought a family from Maryland, a 6-hour drive to come to Beckley. YouTube had 588 views of 19 videos that we put up. 43 tweets were issued. We collected 50 pins on Pinterest. I had 10 blog posts published. And that's our social media. Tactic 5, construct a blog to generate interest in the Beckley event, which we did. WestVirginiaRemembers.info was the address for the blog. And we chronicled the history of the event, went back and took some excerpts from the local newspaper. The story of the Lewin family bell tower, which is now on West Virginia University Institute of Technology's campus. We had 10 posts. We had 404 unique visitors during the time of the promotion and 533 page views. Tactic 6, publicize the event with a press release and a newspaper article. Parachute Partners out of Ohio. And this was a company that used to be owned by a friend of mine, and she sold it to a guy that worked for her. I didn't know him at the time. He was from Beckley, Josh Rollins. Got to know him, and he said, I will do this for free. And he sent it to every media outlet in West Virginia. Newspapers, radio stations, TV stations. There was a front page article in the Registered Herald, which had a 28,000 circulation that aired, or that was released on April 2nd, or 12th rather, in 2018. And there's the article. Laura wrote this, and while it's below the fold, it still is a front page article for a college junior to have, and she got some real kudos from John Davies for that. Tactic 7, display posters to publicize the event. We printed 130 posters, mailed those to synagogues around West Virginia, and distributed them through businesses and at WVU Tech's campus by volunteers. There's the poster designed by Laura. I helped with some of the ideas behind it, and that's one of the things. We both worked on everything, but there generally was a lead person. She was the lead person on this. Tactic 8, publish a video that chronicled the story of the Lewin family bell tower, which really got the whole thing at a college campus started. And so the video rekindled interest in Max's story. It emphasized his gift of the bell tower to the local university. That video had 107 views. And as we look at the PESO model, which is used in marketing, PESO is paid, earned, shared, and owned. Here's how that stacked up. Owned media, website, video, logo, and blog. We owned all of those. Shared media, which were shared by us and others. YouTube videos, social media, posters. Earned media, because of my contacts in the media, I was able to get a lot of coverage, both in newspaper, television, and also radio. We had a feature radio story, newspaper article, the Metro News story, a radio interview, media coverage, press release, and PSAs. And the only thing that we paid for, or somebody paid for, newspaper ads and our Facebook ads, because we bought several Facebook ads to promote the event. Our budget. How much do you think we paid for all of this? Take a wild guess. $2,000. Do I hear more or less? Ooh, less. All right, what is the number? $250? $250? Well, let's see. All right. Web hosting for the website and blog, $150. 4 domain names, and I bought them on sale, $60. Printing of posters, I had them printed here by our copy center. Got my employee discount, $30. Facebook ads, $75. We had to hire an AV tech because WVU Tech would not guarantee that a person would be there to run everything. And Friday night before the event, I go down to meet with the folks at WVU Tech. And I'm there, and the woman says, I live in Princeton, I'm not coming up for this. I said, would $50 change your mind? She says, absolutely. So I wrote her a check, and she came. She was a little late. I was really nervous because we had all kinds of things that were going to go up on the screen. Travel from North Central West Virginia, I estimated $150. Press release, that was free. The print ads, those were free. We didn't pay for those. All media coverage, they were PSAs, and they were stories that the media just put up for nothing. $515. But wait, what do you think it really cost us? Really, I had a website on GoDaddy, or several websites on GoDaddy. It really wasn't $150, more like $50. Of course, those things were costs that we could not get out of. The $60 for the domain names, the $30 for the posters, the $75 for the Facebook ads, $50 for the AV tech, but everything else, nothing, nothing, and nothing. And that came up, and Josh, you were close, $235 out of my pocket for this particular campaign. Its success. Our goal was to promote in 4 markets: Beckley, Bluefield, Princeton, Lewisburg, and Charleston. We exceeded that with statewide and even across the state coverage. Our goal to double the attendance of recent years, you remember the recent attendance was about 30. We thought 60 would be good. The largest attendance they ever had was 70. We exceeded that with 165 people showing up. More than doubled the largest attendance in our goal and quintupled the recent average attendance of 30. Temple Bethel was very pleased, asked us to do it again. We said, maybe sometime in the future. Not right now. This was a lot of work for 2 people. WVU Tech, who had charged Temple Bethel for the several previous and that particular event to come to their auditorium in Carter Hall, stopped charging them and started providing free of charge an AV tech. The real success, we told Max Lewin's story, and that was the great benefit of it. And here's some of the photos of the event. That was what's on the screen. That's Max reading the names at the first Holocaust Remembrance Day in 1991. Dr. Joe Golden, the secretary of Temple Bethel, their sometime rabbi. He comes in for the High Holy Days, so he is in Beckley now. David Sofian is his name, Rabbi Sofian. He also played guitar. He's playing the shofar there. I had a message. It was a wonderful message that he delivered. And he's usually there for Yom HaShoah, which is the Day of Remembrance, as well as for the High Holy Days, Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah, which we're just finished Rosh Hashanah. Yom Kippur is coming up. I don't know if he's there for Sukkot or for the other holy days that follow, but he certainly comes in. He spends half of his time in Dayton, the other half in Israel. This is the candles of remembrance as they're lighting them during the ceremony. And there's a partial view of the crowd there. The place was packed. You had people standing up. You had students from WVU Tech sitting on the ground in the back. But with any event, there are problems and there are lessons we need to learn. Some of these problems were my fault. Some of them were just fault of the whole thing. We got there on Sunday, April 15th. They knew we were coming. And this was set up by the temple, not by us. They set it up like this, with round tables and about 6 chairs to a table. Maybe 8 tables in there. And we got in there, it was Laura and I got there first. And then the temple president, Tom Sofer, came in, and his wife, and a few other synagogue members came in. And we were horrified because this was not the way it should have been set up. And so we finally got somebody from their maintenance department to come over, get some chairs. And there were about 6 of us that set up all the chairs and had that before the people came in. We worked like a house of fire. We needed to start the promotion earlier. We wanted to do that, but we couldn't do that with the delays that we had in the research. We needed to conduct more research of the residents, which we weren't able to do. And one of the things, I didn't think about it until it was right at the end. We should have had a comment card for people to fill out so we knew where they came from, what they liked about it, what they didn't like about it, so we could plan for another year. Any questions? Lynn? When his brother Harry was alive, he was a guy that owned property, and he did home improvements. That was kind of his thing. And then when his brother Harry died, he had a pretty substantial men's clothing business. He took over Harry's clothing in downtown Beckley, and he ran that until his death. Any other questions? Well, they had one in 2019, and actually they had pretty good attendance in 2019. I went to that one, and they probably, if I remember correctly, had about 65 people, which was a good number for them, seeing that their original high number was 70. They haven't had one since because of COVID. So it's probably going to need some rebuild, as everything else does. No. I don't have the time to do this. I was a dean and a faculty member at that time, and so do your dean things, as Mike knows. Of course, he is a much larger college than I had at that time, and teach your classes, and did everything in the evenings and weekends. But now this was my last hurrah, and that was one of the things that I told Tom Sofer, the president of Temple Bethel. I want to do this to kind of wind down my career and do something big, and let Laura do something so that she could have something for her portfolio. And we were very honest with everybody about that. We wanted to help somebody. We weren't charging them for it, and they were concerned about that. You going to charge us? No. We're paying for everything. They were going to pay for the event, being at WVU Tech, but they would have done that anyway. So we didn't get involved in that. But it was, and they actually did the, and too. There were several people that had spoken that day, including me, about the video and how it came about. But no, I don't have any desire to do that again. We've worked on another project, but it was a very simple project, which we won a couple of awards for, one a regional award and one a state award, for 100th anniversary of a Decoration Day service that's being held every year in Boone County, West Virginia. And that was in 2019 we did that. Got radio coverage on that and a few other things. But we got a media relations tactical award in both contests. You can walk to it, but it's not really, I would consider, near to the campus. I mean, near the campus would be the Presbyterian Church is near to the campus. It's down on 2nd Avenue, if you know where that is. Yeah. Route 3 coming through town. Any other questions? Well, thank you for your attendance and your interesting questions, and I appreciate it. Well, thank you. It's a picture of Josh Allen.